Hello everyone and welcome to our latest webinar. We're going to be looking at piping and tubing today. My name's Alex Aprigliano. So we'll go straight into SolidWorks. And this is the routing assembly that we're going to be working on today. The routes that we're actually going to lay down on this aren't going to make much sense from a sort of design point of view, but they will walk you through some of the sort of more commonly used techniques for routing. So before I get going, I'm just going to hide away the route and we'll just zoom in slightly. Okay, so when you're using routing, sort of the method that you'll use for routing would be to drag components in from a routing library that you've got set up already, and the routing library will be in your task pane. If you want to add components to this library, that's not a problem. You will, when you install SolidWorks, be given some default ones, and there are some additional ones that you can download as well, and like I say, you can create your own as well. Now, when you're starting off a route, there's typically two ways to do it. You can either drag in a routing component, or you can select the relevant tab from the command manager up here, and you can start at a point, and that will just allow you to start your point anywhere within the 3D space. I'm going to use a technique where we actually drag in a component, and I'm going to start off with a flange. So we'll just zoom in slightly and we'll go to our design library on the left and the right hand side, and we'll drag in this weld flange. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is that it snaps into place. So when these routing components are set up, you generally give them make references so they snap into the correct location. You'll also find that the routing components have many different configurations, and they're set up as such, so as you drag and drop them onto a particular size shaft in this instance, or hull, it will pick the right size configuration for you. So you can see here that all the options I've got for which variation I use are for the 5-inch version of this flange. As I say, there are many other configurations within here. Okay, so I'm just going to use that one, and on dropping of that component, what that will do is it will launch the routing property manager down the left hand side here. Okay, so we need to go through the various bits and pieces within here. So first off, it's asking us to give our routing subassembly a name. So we'll just come in here and we'll call this webinar route 1. It then asks us for the document template that we wish to use from this. So the document template will control things like your unit system, how many decimal places you want to show with dimensions, all of those sorts of things. So we'll just leave that as the default. We then come to route specification. So within here we can set up various templates within our routing library manager. For those of you that don't know what that is, what I would suggest you do is just look at the last week's webinar where my colleague Ed went through all of the options within there. But anyway, you can set up various templates, and the templates will set the defaults for the following. So if we're going to use a default template in this case where it's going to use that specific pipe, which is in that location, it automatically picks up on the 5-inch schedule based on the flange that I've dropped for the configuration. Also within that template, it's telling it not to use weld gaps and not to use standard lengths. We're going to use a 90-degree elbow as a default, and that again is going to be for the 5-inch. And then in order to place that elbow, we're going to need a 190.5 arc in our sketch. Okay, you'll see that in just a second. So if we just press OK to start off that route, I'll just save that. Okay, Our route begins, and what we can see here is sort of a preview of a pipe coming off the flange that we've just dropped. And we're essentially in a 3D sketch at this stage, so this is just a sketch line that we can sort of drag about and add to. So we'll go ahead and add to it. So I'll just bring up my line tool and we'll just do some 3D sketching. So I'm just using the tab key to toggle across the different planes that I can work on. And you'll notice that as I start laying that route down, it's putting that 190.5 bend radius in for the elbow that we want to use. Okay, I also want to add another flange, so I can just drag and drop that on from the library like so. And again, we see the stub generated. And then we'll just take those two endpoints and merge them together like so. Let's just drag that up slightly. Okay, before we exit the sketch, we'll just add a couple of dimensions to constrain this. So I'll just select that line there. Notice that it goes to this sort of outside sharp of that as well, which is nice. Okay, so upon exiting of the route, all the pipes and the elbows are generated. If we examine the tree, what we see is our webinar route as a subassembly. It's a special sort of route in Subassembly. You can see the little icon which is different to the standard sort of assembly icon. And if we go down there, we have a couple of folders, one for the components, which just consists of the flanges and the elbows, and then we have the route parts, which are just the pipe. Okay, we'll create another route now, but we'll break away from the default specification template. So in very much the same way, we'll just drag on a world flange. Again, watch that snap to place. And then to break away from any of these settings, just click on Customize Settings, and you'll see that everything now becomes available. So in this instance, what we're going to do is, rather than use elbows, we're going to form bends. And we're going to form bends again using that same radius as before. So we'll press OK, and that will just start our route off. So there it is there. Again, we'll drag in another flange, have that snap into place. And again, you could connect these two by sketching. That's completely fine. But if you right click, you'll find that you've got this auto route tool, which is also pretty good, which just allows us to select the sort of endpoints of the lines, and it will try to join them together. It will first go to the shortest route that it can possibly do, and then if you click on within the auto route tool for alternate paths, you see you can send it along an orthogonal route. Okay, let's press OK and add some dimensions again. Okay, so we just have that one sitting above the first route. Okay, exit the sketch, and this time what we should find is that we've got form bends created. Now, with regard to creating piping drawings, you can find a route, you can right click on it, and you can go to pipe drawing, and that will just give you the option to create a drawing of your pipe route, and you can choose the border from here. So I'm going to go for, let's say, an A3. Choose the relevant bomb. Let's pick just a standard bomb here. And then you can include the balloons or show the route sketch. We'll leave both of those on. Press OK. Just say no to that. And you can see there that we've got our piping drawing, which just consists of what we're using, either 2 flanges and the 1 pipe. You can see that it totals up the length of the pipe within the quantity, and it puts in important dimensions. But you don't have to use these. You can sort of start to delete them out and dimension to wherever you want to. You can also, if you want to, add in sort of your standard views from your view palette as well. So if we go to here, I could drag in a front view and project off that. Okay, I'm just going to close that down. There's really no need to keep that, and we'll just close the pipe route down, keeping any changes that we've made. Okay, we'll do a smaller route this time. So we're going to route using smaller flanges. We'll drag on the same flange from the design library, and you can see that it picks out a smaller flange. This time the 2-inch. We'll again accept the default properties here. Just note that we have a smaller bend radius created this time. That smaller bend radius is needed to suit the smaller elbow that would be used. Okay, so there's the stub. We'll drag on another weld flange. And again, we can see the stub there. And then we'll just use the auto route tool to join those up. And we're not going to follow the orthogonal route here. We're just going to go across at an angle like so. We'll add a dimension just to constrain that. Like so. So just notice that we have the smaller radius being used there, which allows us to place on the smaller elbows that we need. Okay, next up we're going to edit our first route. So we're going to come in, right click on that and edit the route. So that takes us basically back to the sketch. Now what I'm looking to do here is actually route from somewhere on this pipe to a smaller flange, so we somehow need to reduce it down. So the first method I'm going to use is to use a reducing T. So to do that, I'm just going to draw a line on here, and again just using my tab key to switch my orientation. We'll dimension that line at, let's say, 700. Okay, now what we'll find is that when we drag our T in, let's just set that back to 700. Didn't want to do that. When we drag our T in, you'll see that it automatically snaps to that orientation because that line is driving the position of it. Now there's many different options that we could use here. We know we need to go down to a 2-inch pipe, so we'll select the 5x5x2 schedule 40, press OK, and there we can see the stub generated. We'll add in another flange. At 2-inch, and then we'll just connect those two together using the auto route tool. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that route as it is there. I don't need to change the orientation. I will just come in and add a dimension to it. So let's just turn off auto route and add a dimension like so. Okay, similarly at this stage we'll add in another T, this time a straight T, and then just place it on like so. Now as you're placing this T, if you hit the tab key, it will just flip its orientation around. So we'll just drop that in there and pick our relevant configuration. If it does come in the wrong way, you can always use this triad to just flip that around like so. Okay, now I want just a gap between, in fact what I want to do is butt that T up against that T there. So in order to do that, we can just right click on a piece of pipe like so, and then just remove that pipe, and that will just butt those up against each other like so. We want to then reduce it down, so I've got a reducer here, and as I drag and drop that on, it will give me a choice of reducers that I can use. So I want to go from a 5-inch schedule to a 5-inch pipe to a 2-inch pipe. So I select the relevant configuration. We'll add some dimensions at this stage. Okay, and then we'll drag on another flange. And then just simply auto route between them like so. Again, we can just toggle which variation of that route that we want. So that one looks pretty good. And I'll just dimension that to the correct size. Okay. We'll exit out of that sketch. And you can see it generates our route, and it also generates those elbows at the correct size. Another technique that we'll just have a quick look at is I'm just going to add another T to this. So this time I'm just drawing my line in and then just dragging the T on. It's going to be a straight T. Oh, I think I've dropped that off the route. Bear with me a second. Okay, and then with that what we'll do is we'll just take that endpoint and we'll drop it somewhere on here. Just using, oops, let's do that again. We'll just use a relation to constrain that. Let's make that coincident. So what we've got is a small pipe going into a big pipe. I can just see that's just gone a bit strange there. Let's see if we can undo that. Let's come out of that route. Start again. Okay, back to where we were. Let's just get that sorted. Okay, try again. Okay, so we've got a small pipe going into a large pipe. We don't necessarily need to use a reducing T or a reducer or enlarger even to get to that. We can just right click on that intersection and select penetrate. Okay, let's just exit the route sketch and see what effect that's had. Okay, so if we come out of the route itself, we can right click here and we can just isolate that component, and you can see it's actually placed a hole in to accept that pipe. If we exit isolate, and then isolate this one, you can see that it's rounded the end off, so it sits on that pipe nicely. So that's quite a nice command. Okay, we'll make a drawing for that route in just a second, but I'm just going to do a couple of other things before I do that. We're going to add a fitting on here. So if I come in and I edit this route, we've got some valves in our library that we can drag and drop in. So if I drag and drop that one in and place it down, something like that, you'll see that that's great, that all works, but the chances are that I'm also going to have to drop on another flange, which we can bolt to that, and it's not going to be too awkward, but it is a bit of a process to do that. Now what you might be better off doing is creating a sub-assembly which includes those flanges already placed on. So if we just come out of that, what I have is a sub-assembly sort of set up, ready to go. Okay, so there it is there. This has been created with those routing components, and also what I've done is I've put some bolts in there as well. Now in order for this to work within the route as an assembly, we need to add some assembly level connection points and some assembly level routing points. So again, if you don't understand that, what I would just ask you to do is look at the previous webinar from last week about setting up the routing library and routing components. But anyway, from here what we do is we go to our routing toolbar, then routing tools, and then we create a connection point. Now we don't have to create a brand new connection point, we can, but what we can do is just use pre-existing connection points from those routing components, and that will carry through all the properties that were with that connection point. So we have one assembly level connection point, we now need another, and we'll use the connection point from the other weld flange. And then last off, we need a routing point, so we'll just select the routing point from the original valve component. Okay, save that, and that's then ready to go. Okay, so if we again edit this route and now drag on that routing subassembly, you'll see it snaps into place like so. Now if at any stage you do want to reorientate your component, you can use this triad to do that. Okay, just any angle that you want. And you can sort of bring that up at any time just by right clicking and selecting Move Fitting with Triad. Okay, so a couple of other bits before we get to that drawing stage. Coverings next. If we look at this pipe route and we go and edit it, if we want to add a covering, you can do that at the start if you wish to, or you can do it afterwards just by right clicking and selecting covering. And then from there you can use a covering library, so you can set up a covering library which consists of various sort of subheadings. So we've got tape, rope and adhesive tape here, but you can add to that if you want, and then selecting the material. So I'll just pick a sort of generic one, press apply, and then exit out on my sketch, and that covering should then be added to the route and added to your bill of materials. Okay, the last thing I want to show with regard to routing components, actually there is a couple more things. The next one I'll show is changing a route diameter. So we've got this sort of random route that is placed over here, and if we want to change the size of the route components, the way you do that is you just simply edit the route and you right click on a segment and you then select change route diameter. Okay, so it will bring up this property manager here and it will list your first fitting and your second fitting. So in this case my first fitting is the flange, which is highlighted pink, and the second fitting is the reducer. Okay, now we're going to have the first fitting as driving. So currently what's highlighted is the configurations of that flange and reducer that we're using. Now if I select a 5-inch flange, you'll notice that the reducer changes to only show 5-inch reducers. So if we go to 5 to, let's say, 2.5 and then go across again, press OK, because there's no other components in that, that will just go ahead and change that route for us, like so. Okay, so if it is a more complex route, it will walk you through step by step changing the components. Okay, we're going to bring the ground back at this stage. And we're going to edit a route that's part way complete. We'll just click on that and select edit route. The next thing I'm going to show you is within the auto route tool. It's a great new tool that's just coming in 2013. And if I right click, I'm going to launch auto route. And it's called route along geometry. So if I click on that, what that allows me to do is select a stub and then select a planar face like so, and it'll offset from it by a certain amount, in this case 300 millimeters. And then I can just continue to go around and click faces like so. We'll also add to that, so I'll just drag that stub out there and again just launch that tool. Routing along geometry. And then just close that off. And that is my route created. I mean, that for me is a really good enhancement. I haven't had to move my view about too much to access any of that. I haven't had to hide components away. So I can see a lot of people finding that particularly useful. Okay, so you saw us create a route drawing of that pipe route there. What I want to do next is I want to create a drawing of our route here. Now let's say our route in this case is too complicated for one drawing. We want to break it down a little bit. We can do that by defining spools. So we just right click on the route itself and we select define spools. Okay, that'll allow us to select segments. So the choice that you make here is completely up to you. So that will be my first segment, my first spool. We'll do another. And masked off that one. Okay, now if we look at those spools, we can highlight them and see what's what. And we can right click and we can create a pipe drawing. Okay, within here we can select what spools we want to show, whether they go onto separate drawings or separate sheets or on one sheet. I'm going to have them on separate sheets in this instance. Press OK. Again, we'll just say no to that. Okay, so again you can see that it's automatically created a drawing for us with our bill of materials, with the pipe length. We can access the different sheets that were created, which consist of the different spools. So that again is a very nice tool. Okay, last off, I guess we'll go to look at some tubing. Now, I haven't really concentrated on tubing too much because really the technique is exactly the same. You drag components in from a library and then you route them either by sketching lines out or using the auto route tool. The main difference, I guess, between the two is that with tubing you can have flexible routes. So in this case we haven't got any. You can see that all our routes follow a sort of orthogonal path. The route sketches are generated with lines and arcs, but you can use splines with tubing, which gives you sort of a flexible hose type effect. Okay, what I do want to show you here is the ability to use a P&ID file. So a P&ID file can be defined from another system, or you can do it within SolidWorks as well, which just essentially consists of route information. So we'll just go ahead and launch one. So if I just import one that we've got here, what it will do is it will give us options to see our equipment. Anything that's got a green flag is good, it's been placed down. Our piping systems, which excuse me, in this case is empty, and our tubing systems, which we've got here. So with our tubing systems, what we're going to do here is we're just going to place down one of our tubing systems. So it knows basically that within here we've got 2 flanges that we need to place plus a valve. So if we go ahead and process that, that will launch the insert components dialog. Okay, ready for us to place that flange down. So we'll just place it in like so. At that stage it's going to ask us to create our route properties. So there they are there. I'll again just accept the defaults. It then prompts me to pick my second flange, or place my second flange. We'll just place that down like so. And then it's telling me that our valve connects those 2 flanges together. So we'll just hit escape because I just want to reposition that slightly. Okay, just want to add a bit more length to that before I reprocess it. Okay, so we'll just drop that on there. Oops, I think I've dropped that in the wrong place. Let's just... I'll just have to do that again, just bear with me a second. Okay, so let's drop that on. Okay, so it knows that valve then needs to connect to that flange, so it places in a guideline, and you can just take that guideline and then convert it to route geometry like so. Okay, if we now refresh our list, you can see that the tubing system, tubing 1, now has a green flag next to it indicating that everything has been placed and everything is connected together correctly. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the routing webinar. I hope there was some useful stuff in there for you. If you want to ask me some questions, feel free to do so via go to meeting interface. Just for your information, there are some future webinars coming up. So the one next week will be concentrating specifically on routing drawings, and then we've got some advanced weldments, and we will continue the webinars on for next week. We've also got within here our details, so if you want to contact us for any reason, feel free to do so. Okay, I don't appear to have any questions, so we'll just close this down. Thank you for watching, and if there is any questions, feel free to contact us via our details here. Thank you.